Welcome to Faith at Work, the podcast where we inspire and equip professionals to live out their Christian faith in the workforce. Whether you're navigating leadership, balancing work-life challenges, or looking to make a deeper impact, we're here to equip and guide you on how to bring your faith into work. Now here's your host, the director of the Unity Foundation in Alexandria, Minnesota, Kelsi Tim.
Today's conversation is with someone who has spent decades influencing lives far beyond the baseball diamond. Lee Backhaus has been coaching baseball for 45 years, investing not only in athletes, but in the character, discipline, and development of young men along the way. Coaching is more than a job. It's leadership, mentorship, discipleship, and stewardship. Today, we're talking about what it looks like to live out your faith in a competitive environment, how faith shapes leadership, the lessons learned over decades of coaching, and how our workplace can become one of the greatest mission fields we have. So, Lee, welcome to the Faith at Work podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And this took a lot of convincing to get you here.
Yes.
So I'm so thankful that my persistence paid off.
Yes. You told me you were very, very, very persistent, and that is very true. So, and I also have a face for radio, so this just fits perfectly.
Well, then it works out. Yes.
And I'm kind of shy, so that's why I kind of was apprehensive about coming in.
It can be intimidating, but This is going to be a fun conversation, especially for people just to hear your heart and just your passion for baseball.
Yes.
And the Lord definitely gave you that. So let's talk about your story. So you spent 45 years coaching baseball. What drew you to coaching, and what has kept you doing it for so long?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. When I think back to when I started, I was only 25 years old, and I was at the recreation office, and Dale Serum had just become the activities director. And I knew Dale from playing baseball. I played baseball with his sons, and he umpired and all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, after I had started my job at the rec department, which he had just left and became the AD, he came to me one day and he just said, "Hey, we're looking for a ninth grade baseball coach." And, at that time, you're young, you're single, you need the money, and thought, hey, well, I can coach baseball. I've played it my whole life, there's nothing to this.
Yeah.
And so I agreed, and I took on the ninth grade baseball coaching job. And from there, I probably, when I first started it, I didn't realize the impact that I would have. Mm-hmm. My boundaries weren't really very strong with the kids. I was more their pal and then their coach. And it took a few years before I finally realized that, especially once I had coached my own children, then it started to really hit home with me that how much almost every word you say on a field at them in practice or during a game, how you treat the fellow manager or the umpires or whatever, impacts them. Mm-hmm. I had heard some stories of people, that former players that said, "Well, Lee, I remember the time." And then I started to realize, hey, this goes beyond, like you said, it goes beyond baseball. I needed to be a figurehead that was, almost a fatherly figure to all these young men, saying and showing them the way, you professionally act and how it should be handled, and that, winning is not what we're after here. We're after developing character and you becoming a better person. Yep. I've gotten to the point when I think some of the parents are probably sick of this, but when I have my parent meeting, and I start talking to myself, and of course I tell them I'm a Christian coach, as is my assistant, Eric Waggy. We start out with a Christian coach. I said, "Your son is a student athlete." Mm-hmm. I said, "I'm a Christian coach." So my faith and my Christianity comes far before any of my coaching. Mm-hmm. And Eric and my goal is to make your son a better person. Mm-hmm. And then I just pause. Yep. And I get these looks like, "Well, you're the baseball coach." Uh-huh. And then I explain to them, I say, well, as a goal of making your son a better person, the baseball stuff just falls into place. Mm-hmm. Because once I've made them a better person, the becoming a better baseball player is elementary. It just happens.
Yeah.
So
that's really neat. At what point did you realize coaching wasn't just about baseball, but a place where God could use you to influence lives? And you just touched a little bit on that.
Yeah, kind of, like I said, so 45 years. And my children. And then, so after I'd been in it about 20 years and then they were getting into the senior high school and I wasn't their coaches anymore, that's about when I kind of started to realize that, hey, this is meaningful. It's, I've told this to many, many, many teams. I said, when somebody comes up to me and they say, hey, Lee, how's the season? What's the first thing that parent wants to hear?
Your record.
They want to hear my record.
Yep.
Yeah. They want to hear, we're 13-3, we're having a great year.
Yeah. And
I said, my win-loss record is not at all what I'm after. I'm after developing and, all the things you can't learn in a textbook that you can learn on a ball field.
Yep.
That's what I'm after.
Yeah.
So it took a stubborn old German like myself to about 20 years. And then I realized that it's beyond wins and losses.
Would you say that there was a shift in your relationship with the Lord during that time too?
Oh, definitely. Because your faith, I'd had opportunities to share my faith, not on the ball field, but in different settings and stuff like that, where, again, I had alluded to the fact that I've gotten to the point where I think about almost everything I say before I say it, because you just never know how a child is going to take it or run home to mom and dad. And coach told me this,
right. Yep.
So yeah, my faith has just grown and grown and grown. And then when you get to a tough time, then I got the good Lord to lean on, which really is something special.
Yeah. So is there do you have a testimony of this pivotal moment?
It was so gradual. And then, of course, after having been at this so long, the seasons have sort of melted together.
Right.
I can kind of usually remember a couple of players off of each team.
Yeah.
So if somebody would say, hey, do you remember the class of 95 or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, tell me who was on that team.
Yeah.
And now I can kind of whatever.
Yeah.
So. And I would say too, that first 20 years, I wasn't nearly as bold as I am now. For me to stand up in front of a group, 20 parents, 20 sets of parents and say, I'm a Christian. 20 years ago, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would just say, well, we're glad to have your kid and, the cliche stuff.
Right.
Where now, go ahead, fire me if you don't want me to be a Christian coach.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Definitely, that's more of your identity in Christ. That's where that boldness comes from,
time,
right?
Big time. Yeah.
So coaching puts you in a leadership role where you're shaping more than athletes, and you talked about you're shaping their character. So what leadership principles have mattered most to you? More specifically, you've said high level, but what are some things that you're really passionate about when you're developing character?
Yeah. What I really strongly believe in is getting them to believe in themselves. So myself as the leader or the coach of the team, I work hard on always being encouraging and, like I said, you got to believe in yourself. I tell them time and time again, if you're stepping into the batter's box and you have doubts in your mind about how you're going to, I said, then we don't want you in the batter's box. But if you're stepping in there because I've been able to build you up enough and say, this guy's not going to get me out.
Yep.
Okay, now we're ready to play ball.
Right.
So I would say that's the toughest thing that you have to do is to get, because the kids know if you have an 18-man roster, they know who players 16, 17, and 18 are. And so if you're able to even build up those guys, the bottom rung, the second squad or whatever, B squad, you've accomplished big things.
Yeah.
And I've lived it out. I've seen, players that were very marginal become very good players. And that's the reward of it all, as well as, of course, it's fun to watch a good player become even better.
Right.
So that's my, I feel that's my goal as a leader and the coach of that team is to get them to believe in themselves.
Yeah. So it reminds me of Romans 8, right? It's the renewing of our mind. Because I think so often, and I played sports all through high school, the self-sabotage
Yeah.
And then you start fixating on the lies, and then you believe them, and then you don't perform well,
Right.
And so I think that goes back to just living our lives out as Jesus called us to,
Yeah. Because I also say a lot of times, they get sick of a lot of my sermons, but I tell them to just bear with me. But I tell them too, you can't play the game of baseball, and it's most sports. I mean, you're scared and nervous.
Yep.
So if you're scared about could happen, or nervous about not being able to perform for mom and dad, then we're in the wrong place here.
Yeah.
I want to put kids into a win-win situation that they can shine, and then we sometimes even get into the breathing piece.
Yeah.
Just slow your body, slow your mind.
Yep.
Don't be thinking about, do I have my hands in the right place? Do I have my feet right? No, just get up there, let it happen naturally. So.
Well, and it's when you're playing for an audience of one versus an audience of many, that changes your perspective, right?
Correct.
And then when you realize God has given me this ability and I'm going to use it to glorify him. I think of the lessons my boys have already learned through sports, some not so great and some great too. But it does, like you said, it is character developing because we all have a response. How are we going to respond to hard situations?
Right.
Are we going to take the high road? Are we going to speak truth?
Yeah.
Or are we going to go down the other road?
Yeah.
And the road to Jesus, the path is narrow and it's contradictory to the way the world lives. And so I love that you have this platform of calling kids to the narrow road to that gate, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we get together after the game as a team, and I always say, okay, what 3 positive things did we learn from today? And if the other night we won 9-1, they played great, everything was shiny and rosy.
Yep.
Well, I keep trying to tell them, you learn more from losing. You create more character. You learn how to lose. You learn, winning's great and fun, and everybody's grinning when you're winning, but it's, the losses, the defeats, the setbacks. Now, how as a team are we going to overcome all that?
Yep.
And so a lot of people say you learn more from losing than you do winning.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes back to trials and suffering, right? That's where what's inside of us comes out in those moments.
Right.
That's the pressure, right?
Yep.
And so that's where growth happens. If everything's just handed to you and life is easy, I say this, that a little g God of the church is comfort.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid I get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But God never called us to live a comfortable life.
Right.
He called us
feel good.
Right. And I mean, yes, when you are pursuing Jesus, there is that supernatural, it's his presence, right?
Yep.
But it's not that we just get to live this cush life. He's going to ask you to lay it all down before him, right?
Yep.
I think of the rich man and he's like, I'm going to follow you. I did all these things. He's like, go sell everything that you own. And he's like, peace out.
Yep.
This is the Kelsi's Message Bible version. Yep. But it's going to cost you something to follow Jesus.
Yeah. As you say that, what comes to my mind is the old saying of Christianity is not a playground. It's a battleground. And that's one of my other sayings that I've said for years. My life verse is Micah 6:8, which talks about humility and grace. And I tell them, I said that at the beginning of the season, I'll say there's 2 types of baseball players: humble baseball players and about to be humbled. And I'm sure there's probably some kids that are through college that, I remember when Coach Backhaus told us, there's 2 kinds of players, but it's so true.
It is.
I mean, learn to humble yourself, and baseball or sports is a God-given talent in the first place.
Yep.
God made you a better golfer than me, or whatever.
Yeah, definitely not. He did not make me a good golfer.
Well, okay, whatever the sport.
Ask my husband.
Okay. So
other things. Yeah.
So I mean, it's now take that what God has given you and use it for His glory. Your audience of one.
Yep.
That's exactly what it's all about.
Yeah. What does it look like to live out your faith authentically in a competitive environment?
I guess the one thing that I have thought about as I was reading through these questions too is because a lot of times players will say, "Hey Lee, how many times have you been kicked out of a game?" Because I mean, I umpired and refed for 40 years also, so I know, and I probably know too much because I know what I can and can't say to an official,
right,
or where their stop point is.
Yep.
Okay, we're done now,
Yep.
And so I in the 45 years have only been kicked out of one ball game, and that was about 5 to 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I did lose my cool at that time, but it's a, like we talked about, it's a battlefield. I mean, you have to really think about it, ponder about it, because it's instant. A lot of stuff that happens is, you hear people say, well, in the heat of the moment, well, you got to calm down and cool off that heat of the moment because, and so I've been at this long enough now that I can control it. And I always tell them, I always say too, you guys, I don't want you ever to even address an umpire or talk about him or whatever. That's the coach's responsibility. If you've been wronged, I'm going to let that umpire know. Yeah. You don't have to let him know.
You'll fight for it.
And so they know I've got their back.
Yep.
And otherwise, when you talk about the authenticity, the kids, they know whether you're sincere or not in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
They could see artificial, fronts and whatever. And, so if I wear it on my sleeve as a humble coach and, living out my faith, it shines through.
Right.
Yeah, and it takes home with them.
Well, and it's a fruit of the spirit, self-control, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I mean, watching sports, it's very triggering. Again, it exposes what's inside. And but I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's identity. When you're doing sports for identity versus from identity, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And
new ball game. People ask me a lot of times, what's the difference from kids in the 80s to kids in 2025? Yeah. And the one thing that I say is the kids nowadays have so many more distractions. My kids, the kids my players that came back in the 80s to practice and whatever, they didn't have to worry about, social media. And,
right.
I mean, they came there to practice baseball.
Yep.
Kids now, when they come to practice, I don't know if, mom and dad had a fight at breakfast table or their girlfriend told them we're done. I mean, there's so many more things that are going on in their lives compared to, and our whole society has just sped up so much faster. It's pretty simple back then.
We didn't have the internet in the 80s. Barely the 90s, like early 2000s. I mean,
landlines. We had.
Yeah.
Could you call your mom when you get home?
Or the collect call, right? From the high school. Pick me up. Click.
Yep.
What's your name?
Practice is over.
Yep. Practice is over. Yep.
So.
Well, and to what we're talking about is like social media, buying like instant gratification. We didn't have the amount of instant gratification, even when I was growing up.
Kids want to become a great player now.
Yeah.
Yep. And the kids back in the 80s and 90s realized, it's a process.
Yeah.
That's right. It takes some eating right, some sleeping right, some lifting weights and practice. Baseball is a very, very repetitive game, you know, and so, to many it's very boring. So.
I was just going to say, my personality, it's not fast enough. I would like check out and then I'm dreaming in the clouds. And
you can probably edit this, Kelsi, if you'd like. But the game of baseball is simple to the simple-minded. What's the next question?
It's again, competitive environments can bring pressure, conflict, and emotion. How has your faith shaped the way you handle those moments? And you talked about where you lost your cool. So.
And again, it takes some heavy breathing and some real, almost an internal perspective. I mean, in the big picture, what does this, what does this game today at 5:00 have to do with anything that's going to happen even next week?
Yeah.
If you have that kind of a, learn from it. Let's learn from it. It probably wasn't fair. It probably wasn't the right. Maybe the umpire just absolutely blew it. But let's move on and get better from it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think back to, baseball is slow, but I think there's something beautiful about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
there's no time clock.
There isn't. Well, but to the fact that like you do have to wait, and how often the Lord makes us wait all the time.
Right.
And it's uncomfortable. And we do check out and we do get bored. But then it's like, no, focus on what he's called you to do as you're in the outfield waiting for a ball to come to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a different kind of discipline to stay engaged.
Yes.
Than, sports that are a lot faster.
Yep.
And individual too. So I think there is something I'm verbally processing out loud right now. I'm having this little aha moment. Like there is something really
beautiful
unique and different.
Baseball,
yeah, there is, because it's more of a mental, like games like hockey or football, even like in wrestling, like those are really fast and your body just goes through the motions, like
muscle memory.
There we go.
Yep.
But when you're in baseball, like there's a mental toughness that has to come to really stay engaged in the game.
Yes.
You have to build that.
Yep. Thinking out everything that happens.
Yeah. But I can totally see that, God is a God of process and he's outside of time, which really bugs me because we were just talking about this yesterday during my TED Talk. My friend is like, you think you're patient, but you're not. Yeah. I'm like, I know, but I'm just like, come on, Lord, like, let's do this. Yeah. But we know that his timing is better.
It's perfect.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
So Lee, when you think about the players you've coached, what do you hope they remember most? Not about baseball, but how you've led them.
I've been able to, in the past 20 years probably, and I said this to our head coach one time when we were doing a job evaluation session or whatever, and I said, I really measure my success with a student that I had in 10th grade, or a student athlete that I had in 10th grade that invites me to their graduation party. And I think has really become a measuring stick for me. Did I have enough of an impact on a kid as a 10th grader that 3 years later as a senior, now he invites me to to their graduation. Yeah. And that's something that I take to heart. I mean, it means a lot when somebody hands me a graduation card 3 years after I had them in baseball.
Yep.
And there are some students that I've actually kept in track of and tried to encourage them while they were off to college.
Yeah.
And, that's what it's all about,
yep.
And so, I did have somebody before the kind of the 20-year mark when things really started to change for me, that a parent had asked a group of the kids, what do you remember about Lee Backhaus? And they said, he was fair. And that, so if I'm able, and it's very, very difficult because, if I have the 18th player that, if I send him to the plate, I've got about an 80% chance he's going to strike out compared to the kid that's batting leadoff, and I know he's going to put the ball in play.
Right.
It was hard to keep them on a same equal treatment.
Right.
But when somebody said, well, he was fair, I try to give them all fairly equal opportunity. I tell them, don't give me a reason not to put your name in the lineup. Coming to practice and moping and standing out in the outfield and picking dandelions. Well, now I have a reason not to put you in the lineup.
Yep.
If you're engaged and, I'm going to give you opportunities. I'm going to get you in the lineup. I'm going to get you 3 or 4 at-bats in a game. Now, here's your chance to prove yourself.
Yep.
So.
Have you found, because, has it been over 45 years or you're at the 45 year?
No, I'm at 45,
year?
yes.
Okay.
It was 1981 when I took, and I've coached my daughter in basketball. And my son played basketball for a while. So it's been mostly all baseball, but there has been periods or seasons of also some pushing out. As a matter of fact, that reminds me of when my daughter went to first grade kindergarten or first grade soccer.
Okay.
And the guy in charge of it says, hey, Lee Backhaus, you come over here. You're going to take a team. I knew
Nothing.
zero about soccer.
But he knew you could coach.
Yeah.
You could encourage kids.
You could encourage kids. And, it was the honeycomb where everybody stood around the ball and chased the ball around.
They're so
I
cute.
knew, we're supposed to get the ball in the goal.
Yep.
So, that little bunny trail there, but it's, I think there's part of once you've had the opportunity to work with the kids and be a mentor to a team or a coach or have that leadership position, it starts to develop and you learn what it takes to make a good team.
Right.
So
I'm trying to remember this saying, but it's something along the lines of there's kids that are just gifted athletically. Like stuff comes easy and they're standouts. And then there's kids that have athletic ability, but they have to work really hard. And so I think the quote is something like hard work ethic you can outperform somebody that's naturally gifted.
Right.
Are you tracking with me?
Yep.
So from that, how has that played out in your coaching where you've seen kids that maybe just aren't the natural, but they've outworked kids with the natural ability?
There's a couple of players that come to mind right away. And they were marginal. And like I said, when I went back to, you put a team of 18 kids together, they've got guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to players 16, 17, and 18.
Yep.
And I would say that the rest of the team thought there were a couple of players that I have in mind that were 15th, 16th, 17th best player on that team.
Yep.
I gave them the opportunity to be kind of in the starting 10 and they just blossomed and they became, one of the best players.
Yeah.
And the rest of them were sort of blown away. And I think
they got humbled.
They got humbled. And
coming from humility, right?
Right. And so, and this guy or the two that I'm thinking of outworked everybody. They, were first one to practice, last one to leave, hey coach, can I, what can I do to make your job easier and better? And that's the warm fuzzy thing you get from coaching is when you see somebody that is marginally talented that just blossoms and becomes a better person. Today, shocking. This is going to be shocking, Kelsi, but we would call him a doctor.
Okay.
And so he went on from, and I'm not saying that what happened to this child on the baseball field, with him get through college and then go on to doctorate school. And, now he's a medical doctor.
Yep.
I didn't see it at the time, but now I totally understand.
Yeah.
So again, that's the piece that gives you the warm fuzzies when you see somebody get it. I get it. It clicked,
Well, and I think coaching is such a unique opportunity, and just working with people in general, or even like teaching, is like partnering with the Lord and calling the gold out of kids. Like you never know what's truly inside unless you do partner with the Lord. Like, Lord, show me how you see them.
Right.
And then those really neat opportunities where, because you gave them opportunities, you believed in them, like, look what happens. And I think we all want that, right? We all want somebody to see us and to call us to where God's actually created us to be. And that's, what a cool opportunity, Lee.
Right.
Like, kingdom work is what you're doing.
Yeah. And back to when I had talked about I truly feel as a coach, my job is to get the team to believe in themselves.
Yep.
And, I can think of tons of situations where I've called timeout, called the kid that's up to bat, and just, as put roses in his eyes, shall we say, and tell him what a great player he is. And, the results obviously were, super. And that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
But,
for someone who's listening who isn't a coach but leads a business, a team, or people, what leadership lessons from coaching translate directly into the workplace?
Right away, the thought that comes to my mind is back to that teamwork. We also have a saying on the field is, we can win this game today if everybody does your job. Yep. Okay, so if I'm the CEO of a company, if I get my sales director to be doing his job and I get my custodial staff to be doing their job, creating this team emphasis of, I don't have to be the kid that hits the home run. I can be the janitor that makes sure the office is beautiful and the lighting is proper so that Kelsi, the sales director, can get her sales done. And it's all that team effort, getting the cohesion of everybody doing their part, everybody, fairly happy and content. And what's what God tried to do with all of us.
Right.
He started with the 12, trying to build a 12-man team out of those guys and, and the ripple effect, multiply it out. So.
Well, and I think too is just back to your pep talk that you give, that this season either you're going to come in with humility or you're going to be humbled. And I think sometimes people look down on different jobs, but really we all need each other.
Yes.
And God has gifted us uniquely and different, and we're all on the same playing field.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I think if people can get over themselves and, like you said, truly walk in a spirit of humility that comes from the Holy Spirit, because otherwise God is going to give you opportunities to be humbled.
Right.
But one job isn't better than the other.
No.
And we all need each other.
Right. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Let's make it a good place.
Yep. Yeah. Was there a player or a moment that reminded you why this calling matters, Lee?
I go back to the guys that I I told you the story about the guy that's now a doctor, and I have been keeping one tally. I think I'm up to about 8 or 9 former players that now have a DR in front of their name. And their parents, of course, are so proud to come back and say, Ted got his doctorate degree, and he's, so I think that's the part that matters the most to me. And they know that they become a success in life beyond, because we've had talks in the dugouts many times with kids where, you won't realize till maybe you're a senior in college that this was pretty neat. We had a place to go, place to hide, place to be in and enjoy ourselves on a sunny afternoon playing ball.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't win every game, but that's what life is supposed to be about,
Yep.
Kind of a mini marriage almost,
Yeah.
because marriage ain't easy,
No, it's not.
So
it's about dying to more.
That's right.
Out serving the other,
yes,
right?
Yeah, help each other. We're here for each other.
Yeah.
The thought that comes to my mind too is I tell them this a lot of times. If in fact you go 0 for 4 and we win, your attitude is going to shine that you need to be happy for the team that we won. But now if I go 4 for 4 and we lose, I don't want to see you being, ooh, look at me, right? Because this is all about a team.
Yep.
Or at the same time, I don't want the player that's ahead of you almost cheering for him to strike out or do bad, make an error. We're here for each other. We're here to encourage each other. And that's a difficult, because kids don't measure, the parents don't measure a game by that either.
Right.
I know that they're in the stands if Johnny is second, the guy behind the second baseman, the number 2 in your depth chart.
Yep. When
the number 1 guy gets up there, deep down, they're hoping that the guy doesn't play very well.
Well, that's a check your heart moment, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, because they want them to fail so that their kid's going to get an extra opportunity. And, you got to learn to deal with those kind of situations too. So.
Well, how do you help parents and kids? But I think it really starts with the mom and dad, right? How do you help them understand that there's more to life than sports and how your kid does in the lineup?
Yeah.
Like, do you have conversations or?
Yeah, I think that.
So I'm sure you've seen a lot of interesting situations.
Yes, that comes down to our after game, our post game talks, because then I'm able to say, here's what you should have learned from this. Here's how you should understand what happened. That's the kind of thing.
Yep.
I've also caught myself saying to the, not to any child in particular, but I said, if a child or if a player goes home to supper after school and after practice and mom and dad say, Coach Backhaus doesn't even know what he's talking about. And if they say it more than once at the supper table or at the breakfast table, what was Coach Backhaus thinking last night when he did this or whatever?
Yep.
Well, all of a sudden the kid starts to think the same way the parents talk.
Right.
And so now your job as a coach is to, deal with the issue and then convince them that you do know what you're doing. And there's a process here. And there's a reason Johnny didn't get to play because he was picking dandelions in practice on Monday and Tuesday.
Right.
And the parent wasn't there watching the kid, or the kid was pouting in the dugout, or when it came time to pick up the equipment and rake the field, he ran off, and hid somewhere so he wouldn't get to do it. Well, I see those things. The parents don't.
Yep. Yeah. Has there been any moments where you've helped parents have a different, like a higher perspective of sports versus it being all about winning and losing? Or I should say winning. Yeah. But just what, like, at the very start of our conversation, it's really about character development. Because these kids are going to go on to be doctors and leaders and whatever it is, but you want them to be good people. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. That happened more in probably my first 25 years. Okay. Then, now when I'm wide open about my faith comes way before my coaching. And if you don't think I'm doing a good job, I'll see you in church on Sunday. Yeah. I'm done. But, there was times when they would confront me and I'd have to have an explanation and say, well, Johnny didn't play because this happened, and this happened, and if this, and this didn't happen, then Johnny would be playing more. Yep. And trying to tell a parent that, well, we turned on a scoreboard for a reason. Yes, but that's not the big whole picture here. Is, like we've talked about the whole session here, is we want to make you a better person. Yep. And the baseball is just our platform. Yep. Yeah.
So how has coaching changed your faith over the years, and what has God taught you through this journey?
Patience, number one, because I'm as competitive as anybody ever was. I can remember growing up that, I would yell at officials and I was a spitfire. I'm sure I wasn't easy to coach. And in my whole life, I'm still competing at a national level with my baseball, my senior baseball. And so through it all, God has said, you know what, Lee, I gave you the ability to continue this whole thing. Now I want you to share it with others because of, what I gave you. Yeah. And so that piece is just, has strengthened my faith beyond whatever. And without the daily struggle and the daily prayer and reading the Bible and, staying in tune with God and getting to know him as best I can, I would have quit this 25, 30 years ago. So it's definitely strengthened my faith and made me a better Christian. So
it's become more of a personal relationship for you versus
and
checking the boxes.
Baseball is the enjoyment piece because, well, today is going to be rainy, but on a sunny, beautiful day, I get to go hang out with 18, 16-year-olds. Yeah. And play.
They're so fun.
Yeah. And play a game. I shouldn't really get paid, right?
Right.
Well, okay. Let's cut that, edit that, please.
So in closing, Lee, if you could leave one encouragement for someone trying to faithfully live out their faith in the workplace, what would it be?
I'm going to steal your persistence word. You just have to be persistent. You have to continue to live it out. Again, if you don't have an authentic faith and an authentic personality, people pick up on it right away. You can try and fool people, and you probably will for sometimes years. But in the end of the run, if you're the boss of that place, lay out your honesty, your integrity, the reason you're the CEO of that company is because of those things. It's not because I'm lording over you and the boss or the owner pays me 5 times what you make. It's no, this is authentic, be honest, be truthful, and you won't get yourself in trouble.
Yep.
You can get your team to become a true team.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this has been so fun. You've done awesome. And I can't wait for our next one.
Thank you for joining us on Faith at Work. We hope today's episode has inspired and equipped you to live out your faith in the workforce. Don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend, and join us next time as we continue to equip you on your journey of faith at work. Faith at Work brought to you by the Unity Foundation. Learn more at unityfoundation-alexandria.com.